Thank you, Madam Chair, and the members of the committee. Damien Schiff on behalf of the Pacific Legal Foundation. I'll be brief. In addition to the legal and policy arguments we set forth in our written comments as to why the committee should reject AB 1129, I'd like to point out that it does not reflect what was the long-standing view of the Coast Commission itself, articulated in a brief filed by the Coast Commission in an appeal against Surfrider Foundation in 2006 concerning the interpretation of Section 30235, which is the provision of the Coastal Act that gives the right to protect one's home with a protective device. In that brief, the Commission says that the Commission, quote, has consistently interpreted Section 30235 to refer to structures that exist at the time of the application. And the brief goes on to say that the Commission is not aware, quote, of a single instance in the history of the Coastal Act in which it has determined that existing structures in Section 30235 refers only to structures that predated the Coastal Act. So you have property owners from 1977 to at least 2006 who undoubtedly acquired their property under the reasonable expectation that they would be able to protect their property when necessary under existing law as consistently interpreted by the Coastal Commission. And that very legitimate expectation would be directly undercut and thwarted by the proposed bill, and that's why the Pacific Legal Foundation respectfully asks for your no vote.
Thank you. Other questions? Mr. Acosta?
The gentleman from the Pacific Legal Foundation, I had some questions, but they can be generally answered as well. Can you give me an idea of how you feel that this bill does not provide a real benefit to coastal access or the public benefit, just in terms of that, public access and the enjoyment of the public?
I don't see how the public welfare is benefited when individual property owners are forced to sacrifice their constitutional rights to their own property, and that's precisely what this bill would do. It doesn't necessarily help anyone if individual property owners are targeted for, as Mr. Stacy pointed out, just allowing the force to allow their homes to fall into the sea, when not only was there a consistent practice by the Commission to allow those post-1977 homes to be protected, but also our state constitution itself, Article 1, Section 1, among the many rights that it recognizes, the right to protect one's property. And we think those policies and those rights would be directly thwarted by the bill, and that does not, in our view, help the public welfare or the desire to increase access to the coast generally at all.
What do you see are any of the unforeseen circumstances that we might see in this result? One
considerable circumstance would be, as we point out in our letter, possible liability for the state or for individual local governments along the coast, who will then be defendants in lawsuits by property owners who, because of the bill having been enacted, will no longer be able effectively to protect their property, and which may very well be considered a taking of their property or damaging of their property, requiring compensation under either the federal or the state constitution.
Are you and on this last question, do you have anything else that would tell me why you're opposed to the Coastal Commission, to the author's point about these unpermitted structures? I mean, we all know there's a lot of unpermitted structures in our state of all kinds. It seems to be seems to be the most egregious out there that is being pointed to, but we've got all kinds of unpermitted structures. So why would you be opposed to the Coastal Commission having the authority to go take a look at those unpermitted structures? I mean, what am I missing there?
No, I don't think you're missing anything. That there's no opposition from Pacific Legal Foundation that we should authorize scofflaws. If the law requires a permit, the law requires a permit. But here, it's much beyond that. It's about trying to protect the legitimate and reasonably based expectations of property owners over 30-plus years to ensure that their homes, lawfully permitted and approved by local governments and by the Commission, can enjoy the same constitutionally protected entitlements to protection that every other property owner in this state outside of the coastal zone already enjoys.
Good point. Thank you.
Ms. Limon?